Hello, I'm Cameron Smith, and I'm going to be discussing the human rights situation in Armenia. For my grade for the current Human Rights Report card, I gave Armenia a C-, which I will get more into throughout the video. Armenia is a country located between Europe and Western Asia in the Caucasus region, and is bordered by Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Iran. Facts and figures. Armenia is home to around 3 million people, with over 1 million living in the capital, Yerevan. One of the interesting things to note about the population of Armenia is around 95% of Armenians are Christian and members of the Armenian Apostolic Church. While the Armenian constitution recognizes freedom of religion, it places some restrictions on the freedoms of religion that are not the Armenian Church, which is the national church. Another important thing to note is that the government is a parliamentary democracy, but the former President Sarkisian recently stepped down as Prime Minister after a large-scale protest, and the government only recently elected a new Prime Minister. Historical background. Armenia proudly boasts their status as the first official Christian nation back in the 4th century. Since then, they have been under the control of various empires like the Byzantine and Ottoman Empire. During World War I, the Ottoman Empire instituted genocidal practices like forced relocation, separation of families, and mass killings, which killed over 1 million Armenians. In the 1920s, Armenia was conquered by the Soviet Red Army. Since before the fall of the Soviet Republic, Armenia and Azerbaijan have been fighting over Nagorno-Karabakh. This land was given to Azerbaijan by the Soviets, but is majority Armenian populated. After a ceasefire in 1994, Armenians gained control of around 14% of Azerbaijan's territory, and the two have not been peaceful since. Turkey sided with Azerbaijan and closed the common border, hurting Armenian economic growth. Since then, Armenia has tried to make peace with Turkey, but Turkey has yet to approve changes. In 2015, Armenia joined the Eurasian Economic Union, along with Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan. Human rights issues. Armenia has had an uneven record in terms of human rights, and some of their most significant problems are the lack of political accountability and free speech, the treatment of LGBT individuals, and the inconsistent protection for the victims of domestic abuse and children in need. The most pertinent and topical is the lack of political freedom and accountability. After Sarkisian was elected, protesters filled the streets of Yerevan, claiming the former president was attempting to grab control of the government. These peaceful protesters were attacked by police, and protest leaders have been charged. Journalists who speak ill of the regime are often harassed by police. In court, lawyers defending journalists and protest leaders are often searched, harassed, and denied entries to courtrooms. While in jail, the guards tend to try to turn the other prisoners against journalists in order to punish them further. Elections are frequently the result of vote buying, and one party remains in control. Images. Many of these images are from current events. The first image is of protests in Yerevan. In April, police arrested opposition leaders who helped to organize tens of thousands of protesters in the streets. They were accused of socially dangerous acts, and over 200 protesters were removed under the authority of the police. The second image is of journalists who have been frequent recipients of attacks by police for broadcasting and reporting at protests and speaking ill of the government. The last image is of a pride parade in New York, where Armenians and Armenian Americans gathered in unity to celebrate and stand up for LGBT Armenians. There has not been a pride parade in Armenia, and there are no public queer spaces after 2 LGBT locations were victims of frequent attacks in 2015, leading to both of them being closed. Current news. Much of the news in Armenia is surrounding the protesting of the Armenian Prime Minister and clashes between the journalists and protesters and the police. After the president stepped down, Nikol Pashinyan, a former journalist who greatly opposed the Sarkisian regime, took the position. He was wanted by the government in 2008 for trying to bring about a revolution and was eventually freed in 2011. As head of the Civil Contract Party, he advocated for government transparency and helped lead protests against the election of Sarkisian. The rest of the news surrounds Armenia's decline towards bankruptcy and the violations of ceasefire with Azerbaijan. Non-governmental organization. One of the NGOs in Armenia is the Caucasus Cultural Initiative Network, which works to support ethnic, religious, and cultural diversity across the Caucasus. Another NGO is Uluche, which works to provide different services to the local population, influence public policy, and help develop programs and businesses. Ognem works to help support children with leukemia, to educate the public, and organize charity events to get support. They also provide assistance and support to families of people affected by leukemia, lymphoma, and other blood disorders. SOS Children's Village is an international NGO with a branch in Armenia. Due to high unemployment rates in Armenia, many men emigrate to work, leaving behind women to the lower paid jobs and to take care of children, which leaves many children in poor care and often forced into work. Families are often unable to get the medical and financial care they need, especially those living in rural areas, and many orphans are simply children with living parents who are unable to care and provide for them. I hope this video has been informative and interesting, as I hope to tell you about some of the current rights issues in Armenia and a little bit about the history and culture.